Do you believe the devil is back? Do you guys believe the devil is back? We burst out laughing. Finn had a habit of dropping the most random questions and statements for no apparent reason. Youns and I'd gotten used to that after living with him for almost 3 years, and most of the time we just ignored it, but sometimes he still surprised us. Like that night, when we were just hanging around watching cartoons at 2 a.m. We hadn't said a word for at least half an hour when Finn dropped the question, his gaze fixed on the television. "Back from where, Finny?" I asked casually. He shrugged, still looking at neither of us. "I don't know yet." "Alrighty, buddy, tell us when you figure it out, yeah?" Youns replied with a grin on his face. Finn scratched his head, almost white strands of hair falling over his forehead, completely in contrast with his dark eyebrows. I'd been wondering if he dyed his hair. I could swear it was more golden when we first met, but like everything else with Finn, it was a mystery. In that way, he was the complete opposite of Youns, who wore his heart on his sleeve. After we'd each applied for student housing separately as freshmen, the housing office had randomly assigned the 3 of us to one apartment near campus. It didn't take much time for us to get close, even though we all studied different subjects. We were young, living alone for the first time in our lives, and in some ways these two became like brothers to me. Sometimes I wonder if that's what doomed me, or if fate would have met me either way. Come on, guys, you can't tell me you don't notice that everything is getting kind of fucked. More and more terrible shit happens each day, and instead of getting better, it just gets so much worse. I sighed. It was definitely too late for this kind of conversation, but Youns took his bait. There's always been bad stuff, you just see more of it now because it's easier to spread information. You're the one studying psychology, you should know that. And disinformation, I added. Finn shook his head. No, I don't mean the daily shit that you hear on the news. I mean the other stuff. The sickness, the accidents, the planned death. And they will happen again and again until he stopped mid-sentence to throw a chip in his mouth. Anyway, wanna play Mario Kart or something? Planned, Youns started, but I locked eyes with him and shook my head. It was definitely too late and I was too tired to get into this. Looking back, we should have tried harder to understand what was going on with him, but we were young and stupid. Joking about stuff was far easier than trying to find an underlying issue. But back then, I was the master of ignoring anything that went deeper than the surface. One round and then I'm heading to bed, I finished the conversation. Our days went on as usual. We used to hang out a lot back then, but we also had our separate lives. During that time, Youns practically lived in the library, preparing for some important exam. And I had no idea what Finn was up to most of the time. Everything was perfectly normal until I got a nasty cold that knocked me out for an entire week. I hardly left my room, except for when I really needed to. I wasn't great at taking care of my health, ordering food most days and rotting in bed, so it just dragged on. One of those evenings I was lying in bed, watching some show on my laptop, when there was a knock on my door. Finn entered with a bowl between his hands, his brows pulled together. "Geez, Noah, it smells rotten in here." He left the bowl on my desk and pulled the curtains open. I blinked a few times, my eyes adjusting to the harsh light. "Well, sorry if my agony doesn't smell like flowers," I responded in a nasal voice. "Besides, you shouldn't be in here, I'm probably contagious." He rolled his eyes and dropped down on the bed next to me. "You're not. And if you're gonna be dramatic, I won't give you the soup I made you." My eyes opened wide. "You made me soup?" "Yes, you need to get better. Youns is being a total business nerd and I'm dying of boredom." "But you'll have to get up to eat it," I sighed. "Can't you hang out with Lana?" Lana lived in the same building. She also had a lot of the same classes as Finn and hung around here a lot. He shook his head. "She's visiting her parents." Reluctantly, I pushed my blanket away and sat down by the desk. The soup looked like swamp water and had a strange coppery smell. "I can't believe I got out of bed for this," I mumbled. Finn laughed. "It's an old family recipe. I swear it tastes better than it looks." It didn't, but I ate it anyway to get him off my back, and admittedly, it was a nice gesture, even if he was a terrible cook. After finishing the soup, I took a shower and Finn dragged me outside, claiming the sun would heal me completely. We walked to a close park and just sat out on the grass for hours, listening to music on his speaker and watching people. Youns joined us later in the afternoon, and I felt better by the end of the day, though I wasn't fully cured. That memory, the small moment we shared, is still engraved into my mind, and I think it always will be. Because that was the last time Finn really was himself. It started off with small signs. The two of us shared a wall, and when everything was quiet at night, I would hear him whispering incomprehensible words to himself. At first I figured he was just gaming, muttering curses or something. But even when I held my ears to the wall, none of what he said made sense. And it happened at the most random times, at 3 or 4 at night. Sometimes he wouldn't speak but laugh or cry. And God, I should have knocked on his door, I should have checked on him, but I was afraid of what I might find. So I looked for excuses and ignored it. Until one night when I woke up, my eyes still closed. And I heard someone breathing close, too close. Someone was in my room. I didn't dare open my eyes until I heard my door open and close again. I sat up straight and grabbed my phone for some light when I heard muffled sounds from Finn's room. But this time, there were 2 voices. I stayed frozen, trying to decipher what they were saying when I realized that one of the voices was Yaun's. I pushed my blankets away and stormed out of my room, a mixture of annoyance and curiosity fueling me. Yaun's was leaning on Finn's doorframe, his eyebrows pulled together. When he noticed me, he turned his shoulder to block the view into the room. "You need to get some sleep, man. Let's finish this tomorrow." Before I could say a word, he closed the door and gestured to me to follow. It was all very strange, but something kept me quiet as I swiftly followed him to his room. "Something's up with him," Yaun's finally said in a hushed voice, his expression wary. "What just happened?" I asked. Yaun sighed. "I was just in the kitchen to get some water when I noticed him slipping out of your room." I wouldn't have thought much about it, but he did the same thing to me last night. He opened my door in the middle of the night and just stood there, watching me. I was only half awake, so the next morning I thought it was a dream until I just saw him coming out of your room, so I went to confront him. A knot formed in my stomach. I'd never seen Yaun so serious. "And?" I asked. He said he just wanted to make sure we were okay, that he was worried about us. "About us?" He nodded. He wasn't making much sense, but I saw his face. He actually looked worried. "Did he also explain the whispering?" "What whispering?" "I think he talks to himself at night, but I can't really hear what he says. Something's really off, man." He nodded. "I have to leave for an excursion tomorrow around noon, but let's talk in the morning. The 3 of us." That talk never happened. When I woke up the next day, I was feeling worse again. I had a terrible migraine that I can only describe as 1,000 worms slithering their way across my brain. My throat was scratchy and dry, and something in my mouth felt wrong, like there were lumps on my mouth. With heavy limbs, I pushed myself out of bed and dragged my legs to the bathroom. I hardly recognized myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, dark circles had formed underneath them. My usually tan skin seemed to have lost 2 shades of color. Even my hair seemed darker. But none of that compared to what I felt inside my mouth. I pulled my tongue out and almost threw up at the sight of it. Tiny black craters had formed all over it. I'd never seen anything like it before. I rinsed my mouth at least 10 times, but nothing changed. My mind was reeling, my vision became blurry, and I thought I'd pass out any second when suddenly an arm grabbed mine and pulled me out of the bathroom. "You'll be okay. You'll be okay," a voice whispered. "Finn," I croaked out, my fear suddenly expanding even more. I wasn't even sure where I was anymore or what was happening, but I was suddenly lying somewhere, and his hands moved all over my face. He pulled my mouth open and poured in a bitter liquid. My eyes became heavy and everything turned dark. When I came back to myself, it was already getting dark outside. I was alone, lying on the sofa in the living room. My first instinct was to touch my tongue, and to my relief it felt smooth again. But that relief didn't stay for long. I had slept an entire day, and memories of that horrid stuff Finn had given me came back to me. The confusion was replaced by anger, and I stormed into his room, only to find it empty. "Noah, Finn." "Who's there?" I heard Yaun's shouting from his room. "Let me the fuck out of here." I ran to his door and noticed the key was in the lock. I quickly opened it up, and Yaun's almost fell into my arms. "That bastard drugged me." "He drugged me and locked me in. Where is he?" Yaun's was visibly trembling. I swallowed and shook my head. "I have no idea." "Where were you?" he asked. I tried to explain what happened to me as best as I could, but as the words came out my mind, I realized how insane they sounded. Younes stayed quiet for a while after I'd finished. "I must have passed out already when that happened," he finally said. "Maybe it wasn't real, maybe it was a fever dream." "Maybe," he replied. "Doesn't explain what he did to me, though." "Are you sure it was him? I mean, we're talking about Finn. He's one of the nicest people I know." Younes scratched his head. "Shit, I missed the excursion and I didn't even cancel. If I'm gonna flunk out because of this, I'm gonna kill him." He started pacing through the room, but stopped when he spotted his phone on a table. Suddenly, all color drained from his face and he slumped to the ground. "There was an accident," he croaked out. "The bus, the one I should have been on." He didn't finish the sentence. "What? Was anyone hurt?" He kept typing something, not responding to me at first. "5 people are in the hospital. 2 died." Tears sprang to his eyes and I didn't push further. I sat down on the ground next to him and put my arm around his shoulder. We sat there on the cold ground for what felt like an eternity. 2 young men who seemed to have lost all grasp on reality. Younes might have died if he hadn't been locked in his room, but Finn couldn't have known that. But my mind kept going back to that conversation we had where for a short moment it felt as if he had tried to warn us of something. The sickness, the accidents, the planned death. When night almost turned to day, Finn was still nowhere to be found. Our messages and calls stayed unanswered, so I went into his room to find some sort of clue to his whereabouts. As it turned out, he never would come back to our little shared apartment. A bunch of his belongings were gone, and on his bed he had left us a short, cryptic note. "It's all my fault. I'm so sorry. I should have never left." Part 2.